Alright guys, today we're going to be talking about this book, the Stormchaser, and just let me get that out of there. Alright, so here it is. Okay, we see a lightning bolt become solidified and turn into Stormphrax. That's what Stormphrax is in this book. It's solidified lightning. Obviously fictional, but it is extremely heavy, except that its weight is dependent on the light levels around it. So it says here that in absolute darkness, a thimbleful of Stormphrax was as heavy as 1,000 ironwood trees. So hopefully that will be highlighted for you, that little phrase, so you don't have to search for it. But that means that just a tiny amount of Stormphrax weighs as much as 1,000 ironwood trees. Now, assuming that in this book, ironwood trees weigh similar to redwood trees, you could safely assume that a thimbleful of Stormphrax weighs as much as 4 billion pounds, because a thimble contains 50 cubic centimeters or 50 milliliters, and an ironwood tree, if we assume that it's 4 million pounds, which it is, 1,000 ironwood trees would be 4 billion pounds. Divided by 50 cubic centimeters, we get 80 million pounds per cubic centimeter. That is extremely dense and heavy. It's also 80,000 pounds per cubic millimeter. Just imagine that, a cubic millimeter, tiny little thing, 80,000 pounds. That's heavy. So if we go back to the book, we can see the main character there in the corner, his name is Twig, compared to this massive lightning bolt. Just look at how tall and thick this thing is. So I made some rough estimates that it's 200,000 meters tall, because the highest lightning bolt is, what, I don't know, 118 miles high, so 200,000 meters tall. It's taller than the tallest lightning bolt, but still not super crazy tall. Because, I don't know, yeah, it's pretty close, a little bit taller. Its thickness, I did some measurements actually on the paper. It appears to be relative to the main character. If we assume he's like 5 to 6 feet tall, we can assume that its radius is 1.75 meters. And assuming that it's close enough to a circle that we can use, or to a cylinder, that we can use a cylinder equation, all we have to do is go pi times 1.75 squared multiplied by 200,000, and the volume of this lightning bolt is 2 million cubic meters, or 2,000 cubic kilometers, which is massive. Now if we take into mind that a single centimeter is 80 million pounds, all we have to do is go 80 million times 100 cubed to get 1 meter, 1 cubic meter. So 80 trillion pounds per 1 cubic meter, and there are 2 million cubic meters, so we have to multiply that yet by 2 million to get 160 quintillion pounds. That's how heavy that one lightning bolt is. That's 60 times less than the moon. A lightning bolt of Stormphrax weighs 60 times less than the moon. So this thing is going to have its own gravitational pull because of how small it is. It's not 60 times smaller than the moon. It's like thousands, even millions of times smaller than the moon, but only 60 times less mass. So we can conclude that it is very heavy, and it is definitely heavy enough to sink into the ground. If I just pull up that picture one more time, this thing sinks into the ground because of its weight. Definitely. If it weighs 60 times less than the moon, and it's only this big, it will definitely just sink into the moon. No, it will definitely sink into the ground because of how heavy it is. The sheer weight will just plow it straight through the dirt and ground, straight into the core of the planet or whatever. Who knows? It might have more catastrophic effects. I'm not a physicist or any professional scientist. I wouldn't actually be able to tell if this thing would be heavy enough to rip apart the Earth or create a black hole. It probably wouldn't create a black hole. It wouldn't, because just think about it. It's 60 times less weight than the moon, and, well, okay, it's 60,000 times less than Earth, and for Earth to be a black hole, it would have to be compressed to the size of a golf ball, which means that, I don't know, 60,000 golf balls, or 60,000 times smaller than a golf ball. So yeah, you would have to compress this lightning bolt way denser to actually create a black hole. So it's not going to create a black hole, but it could create some gravitational disturbances that you would actually be able to feel them, possibly. You might even be pulled towards it, kind of like a magnet. Maybe you would be strong enough to do that, at most. But now you know how much Stormphrax weighs, because every time I read this book, I've read this book a few times, every time I've read it, I've been like, okay, so a thimbleful is 1,000 ironwood trees, so how much does it actually weigh in, like, units that I can understand? Like, how much does it actually weigh? And so I always wondered that. Now I know. I figured it out. Now you guys know too. You know that it's very, very heavy. You would not even be able to pick up, like, the tiniest speck of it. Like, a dust fragment? No, it's so heavy. You wouldn't even be able to pick it up. Even though they say, like, those dust fragments have to be so small for them to float around in the air and not just sink into the earth with everything else. But that is everything, so goodbye.